What's up YouTube? Welcome back to my What is Money whiteboard mini series. In today's video, we're going to talk about Mark Moss's outlook on inflation and why gas prices are going to explode in the United States if the United States does not start producing oil ASAP. We are going to do a deep dive into what causes inflation and why OPEC, one of the largest oil producers in the world, just announced that they will be dialing back production on oil, and why the Federal Reserve's fight against inflation is forcing this country into the next Great Depression. As always, everything in this video is speculative. Nothing stated in this video should be taken as fact. Please do your own research, as this video is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, and this video is not investing advice. So let's talk about where things are hitting you the hardest, and that's your pocketbook. Gas prices just broke the record all-time high that they set back in June of 2022. Since Biden was elected in January of 2020, gas prices have continued to rise and rise ever since Biden took office. Now, Biden likes to blame high gas prices on Russia, but that's just not the case. Yes, after the war, gas prices in Ukraine started going up, but gas prices were already up by over 50% when the war started. The number one reason gas prices continue to go up is because there is a supply shortage on the production of oil, which is the aftermath of Biden's regulations on gas companies. Now, I'm not sure if you guys remember the stickers being put on the gas pumps earlier this year. The sticker was a picture of Biden pointing at the gas pump saying, "I did that." That was when the Biden White House and press secretary tried blaming gas price increases on Russia. When gas prices started getting out of control, the White House claimed it wasn't Biden's fault. He couldn't control the price of gas. It was all Russia's fault, and the gasoline companies were price gouging. Then when gas prices came down from $6.50 a gallon back down to the $3 range, Biden was the first one to take credit. But what most Americans don't realize is that Biden actually started tapping into the oil reserves. If you don't know what the oil reserves are, back in the 1960s, there was a huge fuel shortage. It got so bad that cities had temporarily imposed fuel restrictions based on the last few digits of your license plate dictated what day of the week you could actually purchase gas. In the 1970s, Reagan decided that we should create a massive oil reserve just in case a situation like this ever arose again in the near future in the United States and the United States couldn't produce enough oil. The reserve should be saved for absolute worst case situations. Instead, Biden started tapping into these oil reserves to try to cut back on gas prices. So let me explain why this is a massive mistake. Since Biden took credit for the price coming down, people are now back slapping these same stickers all over the gas pumps again, as gas prices have risen up for 31 consecutive days, running up from the $3 range to a new all-time high around $8.50 per gallon in California. And that's just over the last month. It's really simple: supply versus demand. Because Biden has imposed so many regulations and restrictions on the production of oil in the United States, no one wants to produce it here. So the big picture is this: the number one force driving up inflation as of today is the price of oil. If I'm manufacturing electronic equipment and every shipment of parts that I ship out costs me 2 to 3 times more in shipping cost because gas prices have gone up, I have no choice but to raise my prices on my electronic equipment. If Walmart gets a shipment of fresh food and the delivery driver is paying twice as much for gas, guess what? He's going to charge Walmart twice as much to deliver the food. So Biden and the Federal Reserve are trying to fight inflation by raising interest rates. The idea is that when people are out spending money, it puts more dollars out into circulation. If people can afford to spend money, they tend to save more. Less dollars in circulation results in a lower inflation rate. They claim that if people buy less, businesses will be forced to lower their prices to be more competitive. Lower prices on items helps bring down inflation. But the sad part is, the supply chains are actually getting caught up. There is no longer these massive supply chain shortages, and inflation continues to rise despite the Feds raising interest rates by 3.5%. It's pretty easy to understand. There is a supply shortage on oil, and that's pretty much it. The price of oil directly reflects the price of every item that you buy on a daily basis. Supply and demand. How is it possible that the United States could be today not the number one exporter of oil in the world when Biden took office? The United States was the number one oil producer in the world. Yet now, today, we are now importing oil from Saudi Arabia. And now this is where it gets really interesting. Biden basically waged war on the oil and gas companies when his regulations shut down the Keystone pipeline and a vast majority of oil refineries in the United States. Big oil lost big money because Joe Biden's regulations. As of today, OPEC is one of the largest oil manufacturers in the world, and they know that the feds are trying to raise interest rates to kill demand. They want to kill demand so people want to buy less oil, and OPEC knows this. And the OPEC also knows that the feds can raise interest rates by another 10% or 1,000 basis points, and inflation will continue to go up if the price of oil continues to go up. So last week, OPEC said that they are going to cut down on the production of oil. OPEC knows that the United States is trying to cut down on the demand for oil to drive prices back down. So OPEC said, that's fine. We'll just cut down production to offset the loss in demand, so prices will stay up. It's pretty simple and straightforward at this point. It seems like the Fed has exhausted every possible option to fight inflation. The Fed has no choice but to keep raising rates, because if they don't, oh my gosh. The liquidity in the bond market is drying up at an alarming rate, and citizens all around the world are buying Bitcoin at record rates. I don't think there has ever been a more important time to start getting your money out of the fiat system. If the Federal Reserve chooses to reverse course, we could see the US dollar go into hyperinflation. If the Federal Reserve overdoes it and things start to break, if too big to fail businesses start failing, and the largest banks in the world start collapsing, if the Federal Reserve steps in to bail them out, we're in serious trouble. We could see fiat currencies start collapsing on a global scale, and we are actually already really seeing that. There is no option, in my personal opinion. If the Fed chooses to print more money, inflation will tear this country apart. The CPI data we're seeing on TV is year over year. That means that if a cup of coffee was $1 in 2020, then it went up from $1 to $2.50, over 150% from 2020 to 2021. In 2021, if it only went up from $2.50 to $2.75, aka 10%, that cup of coffee would only have a 10% inflation rate, or CPI for that item would only be 10%. Even though the item is actually up 160% from 2 years ago, they are just measuring the cost that something went up from the previous year. So when you have 10% inflation, you don't know that if the year before, it could have been 50%. Right? Inflation is calculated year by year, when in reality, I think it should be calculated over a 10-year or a 100-year period, in my personal opinion. In my next video, we're going to break down what items are used by the Federal Reserve to calculate inflation and what steps you can take to preserve your wealth. Again, my name is Ryan Matta. Good vibes always, crypto fam, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.